What if Lion-O had never come back? Tigra would have been the new lord of the ThunderCats. For those who grew up in the 80s and 90s, Tigra is unforgettable. The ThunderCat Lion-O turned to whenever every decision carried weight. But hidden in the story of how ThunderCats was created, there's a much more complex story. Why was Tigra written as the character with all the qualifications to lead, yet positioned so that he would never wear the crown? The story begins in 1983, long before a single frame was ever drawn in Tokyo. Ted Wolfe created ThunderCats, but Leonard Starr was hired to build the world of the cartoon. Starr didn't start with action or spectacle. He started with values. In the original series Bible, each ThunderCat was given a virtue. Lion-O represented courage, Panthro, strength, Chitara, speed, and Tigra, integrity. That choice is documented. Starr wrote Tigra as the oldest ThunderCat, an architect and scientist who designed the Cat's Lair and later the Tower of Omens. He was second in command, not because he wanted power, but because the team needed someone with that kind of stability and knowledge. They brought in Dr. Robert Coasis, a child psychologist, to review every ThunderCat script for moral clarity and to reduce the violence without taking away the adventure. That decision shaped what the audience would see on screen. But there's a more complicated detail hidden in the production choices themselves. Lion-O was written as a 12-year-old trapped in an adult body after his suspension capsule malfunctioned during the journey to Third Earth. He had the crown by blood, but the series established that he still lacked the wisdom to wield it. Someone needed to serve as a model of restraint and guidance for the children watching at home. The result was a character capable of giving advice, seeing what was coming, and holding things together when the king made mistakes. Tigra carries the weight of responsibility while the heir learns how to lead. To a child watching in 1985, Tigra seemed like the calm older brother, and decades later, ThunderCats 2011 would make that impression literal. In that new continuity, Tigra wasn't just the older brother in the team's dynamic. He was Lion-O's older adopted brother. And there was something even more interesting. According to Michael Jelenic, a producer and writer on the series, many in Thundera saw Tigra as the one who should have been king. He was the better fighter. The new series took a dynamic the original cartoon only suggested and placed that struggle over the right to inherit at the center of the brothers' relationship. In the classic series, he became essential, and because he was essential, he remained invisible. Not his power, his position. Episode after episode, Tigra did what needed to be done, and the story moved on. And every viewer who ever felt forced to be the mature one, whether because they had younger siblings or simply had to grow up too fast, recognized that feeling immediately, even though the series never gave it a name. Maybe that's why Tigra still carries emotional weight when you revisit him as an adult. Which brings us to the central question. If Tigra was the most qualified, why did the crown never change hands? The answer isn't talent, it's inheritance. Thundera was built as a monarchy, Claudius was the king, and Lion-O was his son. Tigra could have been more skilled, more stable, more reliable, and the system would not change because it was not designed to reward merit over blood. The series established two different kinds of leadership conflict. Lion-O was learning to be king through his right of succession. Tigra was learning to support a king who was still becoming worthy of that right. The tension between the right to the crown and the capacity to lead runs through every episode, even when the script never names it. So the writers made a structural choice. They made the leader a child and the advisor an adult, and then asked the audience to watch a boy learn how to lead while an older man practiced the restraint of not taking an authority that had never been given to him. Every episode in which Lion-O attacks first and Tigra cleans up the mess afterward isn't weak writing. It's a consistent demonstration of two different kinds of strength. Lion-O demonstrates courage by acting, even when he's wrong. Tigra demonstrates demonstrates integrity by staying, even when he's right, and victory would be easy. But there's an episode of ThunderCats where all of this changes. An episode where Lion-O has to admit that he might not come back. And before facing death, he chooses who should take his place. It's the episode All That Glitters. Lion-O is standing before the volcano after losing the Sword of Omens. To recover it, he has to enter the depths of the volcano, knowing he may not make it back. Tigra tries to convince him to reconsider, but Lion-O knows he has to take the risk. Before leaving, he looks at Tigra and makes it clear who should take command if he doesn't return. "If I don't come back, you will be the new lord of the ThunderCats." Lion-O is making it clear who should lead the ThunderCats if he doesn't return. What the series actually shows in that moment is Lion-O's trust. Lion-O chooses Tigra over Panthro over any other ThunderCat. He doesn't choose the strongest or the fastest. He chooses the one he trusts to keep the team together and make the difficult decisions. The statement suggests, without the series ever officially declaring it, that if the heir could not return, Tigra would be the only rational choice for leadership. Tigra also builds the places the ThunderCats call home. The Cats Lair comes from his calculations. The Tower of Omens, the Fortress of Sight that appears later in the series, is his design. This is documented in the series itself. While Lion-O inherits castles, Tigra builds them, while the others fight for the present. Tigra plans for a future he accepts he will not rule. For 30 years, fans remembered ThunderCats as the story of a boy king learning to lead. But here's a different reading, one that makes sense when you revisit the series as an adult. It was the story of two different kinds of leadership existing in tension. Lion-O had the right and the responsibility. Tigra had the ability and the restraint. Lion-O was born for the crown and had to grow into being worthy of it. Tigra was ready before the series even began and agreed to wait while a younger man caught up to him. That isn't failure. It's a choice. The script never forced him to put into words, but one that becomes visible in every decision he makes. He could have used his power to take command. He could have walked away. He did none of that. He stayed. What truly makes this story mature? It isn't that Tigra was wrong. It's that the series asks you to watch someone who was ready sit beside someone who wasn't, and trust that the younger man would earn what the older one already possessed. As a child, you thought this was normal. As an adult, you begin to realize who was actually holding the king up. Maybe that's why Tigra feels different when you watch ThunderCats again as an adult. The child saw the king learning to rule. The adult sees who taught him. If this video made you see a character you thought you already knew in a completely different way, share it with someone who grew up watching ThunderCats. And if you want to discover the dark origin of another classic villain that television kept hidden from you, subscribe to the channel. Because the next video is about a character who seemed harmless, but had a deeply disturbing past. Until then,